here's something that might cause a little bit of a problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this cylinder and I'm going to duplicate it off. And let's say I want to make a cylinder that fits right inside that cutaway cylinder that we had. So everything's fine right now. So we have our cube, we have this cutaway thing, and then we have a duplicate of that set to additive. So if I take this additive cylinder, hit W, and now we can just uniformly scale that down. You're going to see it's going through its order of operations. It's going through the cube, it's cutting out, it's subtracting this bigger cube now out of this, and then we've got our smaller cube fitting right in there. So if, let's say we want this cube to just fit in there, and later on we want to animate, or I'm sorry, the cylinder, we want to animate the cylinder like coming out of the cube. So we're like, okay, we're in good shape. However, if we go down here with all of this selected, and we go to Subtool, Boolean, we'll turn on dynamic subdivision because we are using them, and then we'll hit make Boolean mesh, and then we've got this new U mesh here. So if we look at this, we're like, okay, perfect. We've got our cylinder here, and let's say we want to pull a cylinder out. So if I go Control Shift and select that cylinder, you're going to see we're missing quite a bit of it. Even if we do Control Shift A, it's going to select this whole thing, because when we do an additive mesh, it's going to fuse it to the underlying meshes. It's no longer a separate mesh. Not exactly what I was looking for. So in order to fix that, what I got to do is delete that, go back to our working file here, and what we're going to need to do is make this a new start group. So what is a start group? A start group basically tells ZBrush as it's going down your subtool stack to restart your Boolean order of operations. So if I touch this little new arrow we've got here in R8, if you touch that one, it's going to turn this whole object into a start group. So this start group now is controlling this cutout cylinder. So if we turn the eyeball off for this new cylinder here, and we turn off live Boolean, you're going to see we got our bigger cylinder, we've got the cube here, and if we turn live Boolean back on, it's cutting out that mesh. And there we go, we got to unselect that last one. So now it's cutting out our mesh. If we add this cylinder now, we already know it's going to fuse to the inside of this object here, which I don't want. So in order to avoid that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a new start group. Now I have auto collapse turned on. That'll probably be off by default. So if you have that off, you're going to have a start group here with a bunch of subtools underneath, and then a new start group here with this cylinder. So now with that selected, you can go ahead and make your Boolean mesh with dynamic subdivisions turned on. And now you're going to see we have two start groups. Now this new U mesh we have here has two subtools. So every start group gets a separate subtool. So now we have this U mesh here, if I go into solo, that has the cutout part, and now we have this new U mesh which has these the cylinder here. So let's play a little bit more with this. I'm going to go ahead and delete all. You don't need that anymore. We'll go back to our working file here. We're going to go to solo mode here. So now we have a new start group. What I'm going to do is go to, let's go BI brush insert, and we'll keep playing around with this insert mesh Boolean. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. Let's go ahead and grab this oval here. Now if we just drag this onto our mesh here, we still have live Boolean turned on up here. So you're going to see as I drag this on, it's just doing an insert mesh brush right now. So if I go into solo mode and we're just inserting this, I'm going to go ahead and do a split unmasked points, and that's going to keep our cylinder start group, and now we've got another one under here. Now I don't want to do another start group, I want to subtract it from that cylinder, so I'm going to take away that start group, make it subtractive. Now when we go out of solo mode here with our live Boolean, you're going to see now I have this one subtracting out of our new start group here, so I'm going to hold down Control and just copy, pull that duplicate over with our gizmo here. We've got a whole brand new shape. I can go back up to this cutout cylinder here, which it's again, if I turn off this, and again, the start group will control the visibility for all the subsequent subtools. So if you just turn that off, it'll go ahead and turn off all of those. So now we're just looking at this cutout one. With this cutout one selected, again, it's a subtractive mesh. If I go through here and just start subtracting things out, I can just drag these things out. I can grab a new one here, and I can just pull these out. And again, I can just hit W, and I can push these in more or less. And grab this one here. Oh, and with W selected, I can cycle through these things. If I don't want to do that, make sure you go out of gizmo mode just by hitting Q to go back into draw mode, and then as you can go through and select all these. So we can just go ahead and start making more subtractive shapes with our original start group here. And we can go here to this new start group here. Let's go ahead and turn the eyeball on for that one. We've got our new start group, which is this cylinder. Let's go ahead and turn off this original one, and we'll have a little bit more fun. So let's go ahead and stamp some more subtractive detail on this. Let's go ahead and drag out this one maybe. Go ahead and stamp that detail on there. And again, if you want to hit X symmetry, you can toggle X symmetry on or off, and you can stamp multiple sides if you want. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's put a stamp of this on either side of the mesh here. Perfect. And if you want to play with these individually, let's go ahead and go out of live Boolean mode so we can see what our different subtools are looking like, and we'll go into solo. So if I want to have these separate from these, and since we drag those out as insert mesh brushes, it automatically masks that. Where that is underneath your brush auto masking. You're going to see when I drag out an insert mesh brush, it's going to auto mask all my other meshes. So now I can simply go here to split unmasked points. That'll put these into their own polygroup here. So I've got that subtractive, I got that subtractive, and then I got my start cylinder here. So if I go out of solo mode, you can see here's my new cylinder. Let's say, you know what, I want to, instead of doing these as subtractive, I want to do those as additive. So I'm going to go ahead and do additive on those ones. So I've got a start group here with a cylinder with multiple subtools doing additive and subtractive things to my cylinder. And then again, if we go up here to this original cube, now we've got a bunch of objects on here. If I go ahead and turn that eyeball on, you're going to see I'm subtracting a lot of things out of here. So now what I do is I can go down here to our Boolean, turn on dynamic subdiv if you're using them, hit make Boolean mesh. And again, it's going to give me two subtools because it is two start groups. So here's our new one here. And now if I hit solo, you're going to see here's our one start group with all these things cut out. And then here's our new start group with all these things cut out. And then also additive. So if we go back to our working file here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 subtools with 2 start groups giving us this result. Now, like I mentioned before, I had auto groups turned on. It might not be on by default, but if you turn on auto groups, it'll go, or auto collapse, sorry, it'll go ahead and collapse any start group that you're not manipulating. So now that I have this one selected, I can see these ones. Let's go into solo mode here. Let's go ahead and split these up into separate polygroups here. So if I go to polyframe here, I can see they've got polygroups built in. So what I'm going to do is instead of that, I'm going to go to split to similar parts. And that's going to split all of these pieces up into their own individual subtools. Now, they did inherit the subtractive quality of that. So if I go out of solo mode here and I turn off polyframe, you're going to see it's still doing the exact same thing they were. But now what I can do is I can go in here and individually move these things out or in if I want to. Or, you know, you can scale them down. So let's turn off live Boolean here. And I'm going to hold down Alt and I'm going to move this pivot here. So now if we scale this down, we're kind of making this relief a little bit shallower, so we can turn live Boolean back on, and now we're getting a shallower result as we push this in there. But since we have auto collapse turned on, if I don't want to see all these things when I'm not manipulating them, simply click this new start group. It'll collapse those 5 subtools. You see that little 5 right there? That means this start group has 5 subtools in it. This start group has 3. And that just kind of makes it a little bit easier for your eyes as you're switching between start groups to kind of start manipulating the subtools within them. As well as if I want to hide all of these subtools, I can just turn the eyeball off for that start group, turns the eyeball off for all of the subsequent subtools.